Love is but a song we sing, fear's the way we die. You can make the mountains ring, or make the angels cry. Though the bird is on the wing, and you may not know why. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Some may come and some may go, we will surely pass. When the one that left us here returns for us at last, we are but a moment's sunlight fading in the grass. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. If you hear the song I sing, you will understand. Listen. You hold the key to love and fear, all in your trembling hand. Just one key unlocks them both, it's there at your command. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now. Come on, people, now, smile on your brother, everybody get together, try to love one another right now.
Good morning, and welcome to the virtual Sunday service of the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart. We are a welcoming community, encouraging religious freedom, nurturing individual spiritual and ethical growth, celebrating diversity, promoting a just and sustainable world. My name is Ryan Gill, and I'm a member of the board of this congregation. Welcome to you all, and thank you for tuning in today.
Happy Earth Day, everybody. Boy, that snow really gave us an interruption into the onset of spring, didn't it? But now we have a beautiful Earth Day, and I'm glad that you all are with me. My name is Amy DeBeck. I am privileged, I'm honored, I'm so pleased to be the minister at Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Elkhart. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I'm, again, so happy you're with us. The first thing I want to tell you is some things that have been happening around the fellowship. We're holding the Barnes family in our hearts. Carolyn died this week. Jim and their kids are with each other at this time, and as a community, we will have a service for her when we meet again in groups. On the subject of masks, if you're leaving your house for any reason, you should be wearing one. Carol Lee and Zanzer have lots of masks already made. If anybody needs one, contact me or them for contactless pickup and delivery plans. In an ongoing way, if you have any kind of technical problem or something you're worried about, some of you on the phone tree really leaned on a couple of folks who needed to see doctors, and as a community we made that happen. So if you need some help with technical things before you feel like you could go and see a doctor, if you feel that you need help with anything like your phone, your computer, your iPad, will you please call me, because I've got Kevin and Henry. Eliza can help a little bit, but her work schedule is a little different from ours. If you need any help, please contact us, and if we can't help you, we'll figure out some way to make that happen. I invite you into a spirit of sacred time, time that is set outside of regular time. May the peals of this gong help you to leave your regular time and enter into sacredness. We ring the gong 3 times, once for those who came before us and made a place for us. Once for those who are here now. Once for those who will come after us and build on the dream.
Our chalice lighting this morning is called Like the First Hint of Green and comes to us from Jennifer McLaughlin. As the first hint of green begins to peek through the barren ground, as that little sprig grows into a healthy stem, as that stem grows into a stalk and forms a bud, as that bud slowly opens with each new day to form a yellow daffodil. Let us be like that first hint of green, renewed by the warmth of the sun's rays and ready to emerge with a new energy, ready to face the day. We light this chalice to bring a glimmer of that warmth into our space.
Thanks, Chad. This is a covenantal religion. This is not a creedal religion. So when we come together, we remind ourselves and each other of the highest aspirations we achieve when we're together. Please recite with me now or read along. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. This is our covenant. I hope that you'll join me in singing along at home to the next hymn, which is number 62, When the Daffodils Arrive. The words have been sent along with this service. Each week we take up an offering and we share it with an agency whose values are in line with ours. This has been a little bit rough for us. We're trying to keep checking the mailbox for the checks that you send, and we're trying to get more proficient at paying things online using our square.com space. So however it is that you want to share your generosity, this week our offering will be shared, as any money that came in from last week will also be shared with the GLBT Center in Mishawaka. I hope that you will give and we will receive generously this offering. assuming that we have a lot in common. We're all wondering, what impact will this isolation have on us? What impact will it have on the children who are isolated during this quarantine? Americans are dealing with trying to do their jobs either from home or still going to a workplace, and all the while struggling with the loss of childcare and in-person education. It's a lot for people to deal with. Earth Day is upon us, and this is on my mind. The whole interacting of children and adults who usually have their own jobs to do. It's on my mind because humans and our attitudes will decide if we get to have future Earth Day celebrations. Our children are watching how we treat them. Our children are watching how adults treat people who are different from each other. Children are watching how is it that we are rallying imperfectly, but trying to help those on the front line. Children are watching who's not doing anything to help the terrible situation. And children are watching and fearing and being anxious about our murderous president. In the latest article of the magazine The Atlantic, there is an article about a video game called Animal Crossing. I'm not exaggerating to say that in my quarantine space, Eliza has been playing Animal Crossing as if it is her full-time job and she is on third shift. I have simply been happy to know that she's in touch with her friends. They're playing together even while they are restricted by this virus. Now, the thing about Animal Crossing is that it came out for people to be able to buy it, download it, play it, right as quarantine began. So in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there's no way that we are not going to talk about Animal Crossing and the quarantine in the same breath. We might not talk about Animal Crossing, but if we do, it's going to be about the quarantine. In the latest article of the magazine The Atlantic, there's an article about it. It speaks of what this game could be teaching this generation. I found it astounding to think about that. I think about my own peer group. I'm 54, and so the time that I was 16 or 17 was in the 1980s when we were under threat of nuclear war. My peer group can remember watching the movie The Day After. This generation will remember playing Animal Crossing. Those who lean liberal from this generation, those who lean liberal from my own generation, we grew up craving unity, glasnost, perestroika. You remember all those words? We grew up with all of this and feeling excited for the freedom that people gained from behind the Iron Curtain when the wall fell. It makes me wonder, okay, what will kids of the quarantine take from the experience? Well, those who lean left, I mean, because some will become adults who are militant and xenophobic. But the kids who perceive quarantine as a way to care for each other, those who see the gross inequities of the poor working class deemed essential and therefore expendable, those are the kids who understand that unchecked capitalism is bad for humans and terrible for the earth. If productivity by the poor, which makes wealth for the elite, was not the standard bearer for society, we would be living like our escapist quarantine kids are living in their simulated life in Animal Crossing. The game presupposes that capitalism is okay, money can be made, but it's also agricultural, and allows you to make money doing what you love. Instead of money, one earns bells, and nobody is harmed or exploited by working. They do what they want to do. From the Atlantic article and author Ian Bogost. Want to catch butterflies? No problem. Every effort is valid, every accomplishment exchangeable for capital. Want to do no job whatsoever, but just sit on stumps and shake a tambourine? That's fine too. There are no consequences for not earning bells. Nobody cares in Animal Crossing. You are okay. For Americans playing the game as coronavirus lockdown this is also from the author. For Americans playing the game as coronavirus lockdowns produce historic spikes in unemployment, the idea that any activity might be seen as viable work is a comfort, and perhaps even an aspiration. Imagine if everyone had a job that they enjoyed, that they were good at, and that could sustain them. What if they could thrive with no job at all, a step well beyond the highly controversial universal basic income? Even a month ago, such ideas would have felt preposterous beyond the cartoonist shores of a video game. But now they feel like dreams worth dreaming. And that's from the Atlantic. I know that we look at kids playing video games as slothful. I definitely have thought that. But I've softened. When the kids and I got gobsmacked a few years ago, we went to Virginia to visit my dad, not understanding how poor his health was. One way of relief was they downloaded Pokemon Go on my phone, and the three of us could bond by looking for Pokemon. Since then, and since I let them download this on my phone, I learned a language I did not know. It opens doors for me when I speak to young people. Animal Crossing might be the Earth Day anti-capitalist strategy the younger generation learns to make corporations be corporations again, and to value people for who they are. The next part of this service is an interview that happened in my living room with Eliza. We were talking about Earth Day, and I didn't really tell her anything about this Atlantic article yet. But I wanted to talk to her before she got busy with her third shift. She had finished her algebra, done the dishes, and we had a chat. I hope that you will find it enlightening. I thought I would ask my resident 16-year-old what she thought of Earth Day. Eliza, what are your thoughts on Earth Day?
Well, I think Earth Day is important as a day to think about the Earth and the world as a whole, and I think that it's pretty difficult, if not impossible, to think about the Earth as being inherently connected to all of the people and things that live on it. And I think that the idea of Earth Day should be celebrating this wholeness instead of trying to point fingers at each other or prove that someone is doing Earth Day better than somebody else.
That's great. Earlier, you said something to me when we were talking about how individuals take things really seriously while corporations don't care.
Yeah, I think that's kind of a big problem, especially with the way, not to get into it, but the way the political environment is going on, that people, especially middle and lower class people, want to point fingers at each other and blame each other for problems, when really there are people in the top 1%, and there are people that run and own corporations and factories and all of these things that are doing more damage to the Earth than the rest of us combined. Because, I mean, I'm not saying you shouldn't recycle or, compost or do something like that, because still do it, but don't get so angry at individual people when there are factories that are spewing so much stuff out and polluting the ocean. It's kind of ridiculous, I think.
Excellent. So, do you have, I know that we didn't plan this or anything.
No, we did not.
But do you have anything hopeful that you want to pass on to UUFE about Earth Day?
Well, for this Earth Day, I think something that might be good to remember is that everything is one. So if you have a bigger part of that one, why not share it with someone that might not have as big of a part? Call me a socialist, but I think that's the way things should be. If someone has too much food or more supplies than they need, what's the harm in giving it to someone that might not have enough for what they're going to need?
Fantastic. And so you and I will be gardening.
Yes, we will.
And we'll be giving some food away. Okay. Happy Earth Day, Eliza.
Happy Earth Day.
It's the 50th anniversary of Earth Day, and I've certainly given sermons about Earth Day before. On this particular Earth Day, on such an auspicious occasion as its 50th anniversary, I don't have anything nearly as good to say as what Aldo Leopold had to say. When I was an undergrad, one of the classes I took was nature writing, and I was introduced to some of the greatest writers. So I have an excerpt that I put together from the chapter entitled February, and it's very long. If you can get a copy, I recommend reading the whole thing. But I've picked out pieces where he honors an oak that keeps his family warm. Given the snow that we had this week, given that my in-laws and lots of friends are up in Maine with no electricity because of such severe storms, this was particularly relevant, I thought. It's called Good Oak. There are two spiritual dangers in not owning a farm. One is the danger of supposing that breakfast comes from the grocery, and the other that heat comes from the furnace. To avoid the first danger, one should plant a garden, preferably where there is no grocer to confuse the issue. To avoid the second, he should lay a split of good oak on the andirons, preferably where there is no furnace, and let it warm his shins while a February blizzard tosses the trees outside. If one has cut, split, hauled, and piled their own good oak, and let their mind work the while, they will remember much about where the heat comes from, and with a wealth of detail denied to those who spend the weekend in town astride a radiator. It was a bolt of lightning that put an end to wood making by this particular oak. We were all awakened one night in July by the thunderous crash. We realized that the bolt must have hit nearby, but since it had not hit us, we all went back to sleep. Humans bring all things to the test of themselves, and this is notably true of lightning. Next morning, as we strolled over the sandhill, rejoicing with the coneflowers and the prairie clovers over their fresh accession of rain, we came upon a great slab of bark, freshly torn from the trunk of the roadside oak. The trunk showed a long spiral scar of barkless sapwood, a foot wide and not yet yellowed by the sun. By the next day, the leaves had wilted, and we knew that the lightning had bequeathed to us 3 cords of prospective fuel wood. We mourned the loss of the old tree, but knew that a dozen of its progeny, standing straight and stalwart on the sands, had already taken over its job of wood making. We let the dead veteran season for a year in the sun it could no longer use. And then on a crisp winter's day, we laid a newly filed saw to its bastioned base. Fragrant little chips of history spewed from the saw cut and accumulated on the snow before each kneeling sawer. We sensed that these two piles of sawdust were something more than wood, that they were the integrated transect of a century, that our saw was biting its way, stroke by stroke, decade by decade, into the chronology of a lifetime, written in concentric annual rings of a good oak. It goes on for pages, and it's fascinating as they cut through each layer. It's happening in the 1940s, so they cut through the 40s, and he talks about what was happening in human history into the 30s, into the 20s. He surmises that the oak they're cutting down probably started as a sapling in the 1860s. So it's the life that he's talking about is the life of the oak. They've cut it down. He's been poetic. And he says, "These things I ponder as the kettle sings, and the good oak burns to red coals on white ashes. Those ashes come spring, I will return to the orchard at the foot of the sandhill. They will come back to me again, perhaps as red apples, or perhaps as a spirit of enterprise in some fat October squirrel who, for reasons unknown to himself, is bent on planting acorns." I grew up in Virginia, and when I read Aldo Leopold's Sand County Almanac, Wisconsin might as well have been in a far corner of the world. I mean, really, sitting there in Richmond, Virginia, I thought, people live in Wisconsin, people live in Iowa, and now I live here in Elkhart, Indiana, and these are day trips for me. This whole week I've been excited about Aldo Leopold and thinking about him, and Kevin found out that they have a monument to him in Iowa, and I'm really excited, or Wisconsin, and I'm really excited about seeing that. Well, another person that I think of as being tied to place is Andrew McKnight. He's a friend of mine from Northern Virginia, and he's been on my mind as we near Earth Day. A former environmental engineer, many of his songs evoke feelings of love for the area around where he's writing, or where we used to live, or where people still do live. In his song Cedars, he wonders if kids will know where food comes from. Just as Aldo Leopold told us it's dangerous to think that food comes from a store. I hope that you'll enjoy Andrew with me on this Earth Day.
Blacktop winds back in time. Remembered ways I've known and left behind. The signs have changed, but the way is clear. It's been so long since I've been here. Memories point past that sycamore tree. Make a left where the miller's red barn used to be. The gravel gently gives beneath my wheels, and I remember how it feels. A rusted tractor rests among the cedar trees. A pause between be 10,000 houses don't leave any space. This was home when this was a different place. These windows watch 3 generations grow old. Silent statue stands to times long ago, and they say you can't go home again. I know what they mean, 'cause I still see those fields of green. A rusted tractor rests among the cedar trees. A pause between the past and what's to be. 10,000 houses don't leave any space. This was home when this was a different place. Clay wounds weep every time it rains, and castles grow instead of acres of grain. And I wonder if those kids will know where food comes from, and if someday they'll ask where we have gone. A rusted tractor rests among the cedar trees. A pause between the past and what's to be. 10,000 houses don't leave any space. This was home when this was a different place. When this was a different place.
Our benediction today is taken from Navajo tradition. Our Navajo neighbors are suffering greatly in this coronavirus. I turn to their words of wisdom to benedict you into your week. Beauty is before me and beauty behind me. Above me and below me hovers the beautiful. I am surrounded by it. I am immersed in it. In my youth, I am aware of it, and in old age I shall walk quietly the beautiful trail. In beauty it is begun, in beauty it is ended. Blessed be. Amen. Stay at home in peace.